When we talk about enlightenment, what is the ultimate aim of Buddhist spiritual practice, right? Usually, people have an image of something getting something, right? Something changing. It can be something simply as I read it in a book and it sounded nice. Sometimes it's spiritual experiences. In the late 60s and early 70s, one of the reasons why Zen was so popular was because people could have really fun experiences without using drugs. It was like a compliment to LSD. Like, wow, man, my mind opened up so much, that's great. And I'm sure some of the Zen masters at the time are going, oh, sheesh, because one of the things we're doing with spiritual practice is we're putting ourselves in tune with the way things really are, right? With the way things really are working. In one version of the Heart, if you look at the essence of what the Heart Sutra says, is that everything is flowing. Everything is interconnected, interpenetrated, constantly interchanging every instant of every moment. And all the things we would try to grab onto, all the things we would try to label, all the things we would try to pick out and cling to are all illusions. It's all, those things aren't really there. And so the more we try to grasp at something that isn't there, the more we drive ourselves into a painful state, into a harmful state. One way of looking at the aim of spiritual practice is of freeing yourself from attachments and from fear and from clinging and from being driven by desire. If you look at a lot of the things we go through, a lot of times it's just reactive desires. Oh, I want that. I like that. Oh, don't want that. And we react to it without even knowing, right? If I put my hand on a hot stove, I don't have to think about pulling my hand off, right? But it's the same thing with our desires sometimes though. Ooh, I want that. And we're chasing after it without even realizing what happened. And it's like, oh, how did I come to be eating this? I'm eating this and I didn't, somehow I went to the refrigerator, opened up the refrigerator, got out and started eating it without actually being aware of it, like I'm half asleep maybe. And many of our desires, it's the same thing, that we, because we get chasing those, because those habits are so ingrained, they wind up, we follow them instinctively, and they wind up causing us a lot of suffering. They wind up preventing us from doing the things we really want to do. Like, oh, why have I been going, in the English expression, just going in a loop, right? Just going around in circles. I guess that's the right English expression. Maybe I've lived in Korea too long. You're just going around in circles. How come I haven't developed? How come I haven't made any progress? And the thing that spiritual practice does for you is it teaches you to let go of everything. Let go, trust. You can start by saying you have this Buddha nature, this essence within you. You can say it called divinity. You can call it holiness. Trust that. Don't worry so much about trying to control everything with your intellect. Trust that and start by entrusting everything to that. Because a lot of the times we don't actually know what's good for us and what's bad for us. The things that we may think instinctively are good for us may actually be harmful things, right? If you ask a smoker, is a cigarette good for you? And say, oh, it feels wonderful. This has got to be good for me. How can this be bad for me? You know, a lot of times our definition of good and bad at a very low level is kind of a child's definition. It feels good, so it must be good, right? And, you know, an adult's vision is, well, it feels good, but that's not actually good for you, right? That, you know, that won't take you to a good place. And either wadu, in Korean we call it what do you call it in English? Wadu practice, or wadu zen, the koan practice. There's another style in Korean called bangha chak, which is like letting go of attachments, just letting go of them. All of these types of spiritual practice aim at getting us to just jump over all the stuff. Just when it comes up, entrust it all. When it comes up, let go of all of it. And in so doing, we start to rely more upon this fundamental energy, this fundamental strength. And it gets a little bit easier to act from that. It gets a little bit easier to feel that than to just get caught up in the reactions to the feelings and the thoughts we normally have. If you think about your own life, everybody has so many times when they wish they would have just waited 1 second before speaking, right? Somebody yells at you, your husband, your mother, your wife, your son, your brother yells at you, or you get in an argument and you say something that you just, oh, I wish I hadn't said that. Just if I had waited just 1 second before saying that, I would have gone, okay, not gonna say that. When we start letting go, we get that 1 second. We get that little bit of gap where we can quietly say to ourselves, am I gonna chase this? Am I gonna follow this? And you have just a moment to say, no. Okay, I got this, okay, let go of this one. And this is what meditation does for us. It gives us this little bit of gap between urge and action. What am I gonna do? Okay, no, I don't need to go there. I don't want to go there. And so this is one of the really big blessings of meditation, of letting go, or of the wadu practice. And most contemplative spiritual practices will take you back to the same place, where you have just that moment to stop chasing things after they come out, to stop following things after they come out. I think the traditional wadu or koan practice was developed to really energize monks and nuns. You know, people who were sitting in isolation, people who spent most of their day trying to sit, and try to give them some energy, try to really get them focused. But in truth, you know, what we call this wadu, this koan, you know, if you look at the traditional ones, does a dog have Buddha nature? You know, where's Buddha? And it's the tree in the courtyard, right? The 3 pounds of flax, or a dried shit stick, right? If you ask me today, where's Buddha? I'd say the tambe, the cigarette butt on the side of the road, right? That's the modern equivalent of dried shit stick. You probably don't, you know, dried shit stick is the equivalent of used toilet paper. You don't see that very much on the side of the road, but instead you could say tambe, cigarette butt on the side of the road, tambe gongcho, right? The true answer to that has to arise from within you. But what the teacher is saying is Buddha is everywhere. There's nothing that's not this Buddha nature. These questions, though, the true koans, the true wadus, are the questions that are arising within you. And You don't need to go look in a book to find them. You know, what am I doing with my life? Why was I born? What am I supposed to be doing? What do I do next? I'm lost. What do I do now? Right? You know, some huge problem with my friend or my husband, my wife, my boyfriend, my family. Just, I don't know what to do about this problem. Right? This is just terrible and overwhelming. You know, what do I do with this problem? This asking inside, right? Letting it settle down deep inside and just watching and wanting to know the answer, right? This is a wadu. This is a koan. The original stories were serious questions like this. You know, people had a serious argument. What has Buddha nature? Right? Well, people have Buddha nature, okay. People have the potential to become a Buddha, but you know, does grass have Buddha nature? Does a tree have Buddha nature? I mean, if a tree is reborn long enough until it becomes a human being, it can become a Buddha. It can become enlightened. So the theory goes, the idea goes, well, then it must have had Buddha nature then, doesn't it? And so there are all these kinds of arguments. Well, if you've been to maybe India or Thailand or some other places like this, you've seen dogs on the street, right? They're not like the nice, healthy pets that we have here in Korea. They're literally mangy, right? Their hair's falling out, they got funny skin diseases maybe, they look kind of ugly. You don't want to pet them, right? And so this monk is thinking, this was China, and this monk's seeing this, and does that dog have Buddha nature? Boy, it's an ugly, dirty, you know, dirty in the context, dirty in every sense, right? You know, dogs' morals aren't very good, right? The dog itself is filthy and this kind of disgusting, and so the guy said, all of a sudden it just hits him from deep inside. Does a dog have Buddha nature? Oh, it's pretty pathetic looking, but if it gets born into a human being, you know, that means it must have, but can a dog really have Buddha nature? Does a dog have Buddha nature? Does a dog have, you know, this is the kind of questions that grab us, and these are the true wadus. These are the true koans. And like I said, what am I doing with my life? Where am I supposed to go? Why was I born? What will happen to me next? You know, if this is the kind of question that grabs you, this is your wadu. You know, this is the kind of thing you entrust. Keep letting it sink down inside you. Like when you pour water on top of a orchid with the little white stones, and you hear the water sound going as it flows down through the stone, right? Let these kinds of questions percolate down inside of you. And this becomes a true wadu. Now the key to this, the key to all of this is letting go of the questions. Even when you think you have an answer, even when some answer comes out like, let go of the answer too. Let go of the things you think you know, let go of the things you don't know. Because as long as, you know, what they call, in Buddhism, they talk about enlightenment, but they also talk about final enlightenment, right? Where you are truly awake and you're not going to ever be deceived again. You're not going to ever be caught by delusion again. You can know your true nature, right? You can have an awakening experience and still fall back into delusion if you're not careful. This is because, you know, maybe everybody here knows this quote. Probably nobody knows this quote if you don't like to read old books, but they say, your true nature, the way the world is, you perceive in an instant. Right? In an instant you perceive that. But all of the habits you've made over eons, over life after life after life, aren't so easily gotten rid of, right? It's very rare, it's very hard to get rid of all those habits over one life, just instantly as well. And so what tends to happen is your desires, your attachments, these old echoes. In Korean we call them karmic consciousnesses or karmic echoes. These echoes of states of mind, of being from the past, come up through your mind. They come up, they bubble up within you. And so it's like, I am enlightened. I know this. And the Korean expression is they become a foothold for I, for me. I am enlightened. Ha ha ha. Look at the rest of you. What's wrong with you? Oh, ha ha ha. And right then, you start getting caught by this stuff. If you don't let go of that feeling, that idea that I have achieved, I know, right? It becomes a foothold and it begins to get twisted and twisted and twisted and twisted. And pretty soon, you're a long ways away from what you realized. Most of the time in spiritual practice, what'll happen is you'll get a glimpse of something. You'll get, just for a moment, you'll really, truly, clearly understand the way things are. In practical terms, that means that now you have to put that into practice, right? You saw it, you understood it, and even though you don't feel it now, you know, that's the way things are supposed to be. So now you have to make the effort to find places in your life where you can apply this. Places in your life where you need to make this work, put this to work. But what tends to happen is we want to stay in that state. Oh, I want that state back. That state, that experience was so nice. Come back, come back. And people try to recreate it. And very quickly, if you're not careful, what happens is you're not clinging to the experience. You're clinging to your memory of the experience. All right? So, your memory of the experience isn't the experience. So you're trying to cling to your memory of the experience. You're trying to recreate the memory of the experience. In English, there's a funny expression. A man was walking along the street and he saw another man hitting his head against the wall, a brick wall. Right? Just whack, whack, whack. And the other guy is like, kind of, okay, this is pretty weird. Why are you hitting your head against the wall? And the man said, because it feels so good when I stop. And a lot of times, the spiritual experiences we have come because we stopped hitting our head against the wall. But the only way to feel that again is to start hitting your head against the wall. Which is like, okay. A yoga practitioner once explained it a different way and said, sometimes the experiences happen because when blocked energy suddenly gets released. The energy or something that was blocked for a long time breaks loose and it's like, and there's a feeling of liberation. But now you're there, you're at that point. But the only way to feel that release again would be to block it up again. So this is the real danger of trying to cling to the experiences that we have, trying to cling to that feeling of enjoyment or trying to cling to that feeling of pleasure. In order to grow, to grow beyond that, you have to let go of that again and go forward. Because that that momentary state of pleasure isn't the end goal. That isn't where you're trying to be. If you try to cling to that, you won't actually be clinging to that. You won't actually be staying there. You'll be clinging to your idea of that, and you'll be back in, you'll fall back into an unpleasant state. Everybody here has heard about samadhi or samme? No? Okay. Back up. Sometimes there's some experiences that you get when you're meditating that you can describe as transcendent, or you suddenly step outside of your normal way of thinking of me, and you realize you feel part of something. The simplest level, maybe. You feel part of something larger. Maybe you get done meditating and you just look around and the colors look different, right? All of a sudden you really see the colors for the first time. You really hear sounds for the first time. And it's like, I've seen this my whole life, and all of a sudden today it's like the first time I'm really seeing it. You have these kinds of experiences. Sometimes it may be the time just is gone. The time just stops. You're not aware of the passage of time. There's people who've broken these down into different levels, have described different levels of this kind of what we use the word samadhi. But the basic thing for all of this is that, and I wouldn't say this is a Western thing. Without realizing it, most of us have spent our lives chasing pleasurable experiences or working really hard at avoiding unpleasant experiences. When I was in college, I was a firefighter, and I got called to what they call the fraternity houses. They're kind of like clubhouses for college students. And they were so obnoxious. We always got called when somebody was too drunk, or they started a fire, or they fell out a window, or did something stupid. And there were so many obnoxious 20, 21-year-old men. Almost boys, if I was to be honest. And one day I realized, if I thought about the population of adult men, the population of these boys, the percentage of obnoxious people was much, much larger than the percentage of the adults I knew, the adult men I knew. And it also was like, why is that? That's so strange, because 40% of these people are really obnoxious. They're very self-centered, very not so caring about the feelings of others, and very much about me. And yet the older adult men I knew, not so many were like that. So it was, why is that? And I realized why that is one day. Because they become parents. If you're any kind of decent person at all, you have to let go. The first rule of being a parent is life does not happen on your schedule anymore, right? Everything. A friend of ours is going to be having a baby any day now. They don't know when, right? Kyung-hae and Simon. The baby's going to be born any moment now. Like it's overdue by like a week, so I think Kyung-hae is really wishing the baby would be born any time now. But even that isn't happening on their schedule. If a baby cries in the middle of the night because it's hungry or it needs its diaper changed, I'll take care of you in the morning. Not really a good answer. Most people who have any kind of decency in them, okay, get up in the middle of the night and feed the baby or change the baby, right? For a lot of adults, this is, even if they aren't trying to do spiritual practice, this is the spiritual practice that life pushes on them. It's like, honey, take out the garbage. I don't want to take out the garbage. I hate the stupid garbage. Why do I have to take out? Yes, dear. They take out the garbage because that's what you have to do to get along, right? That's what you have to do when you're living together. You have to let go of your own desires for exactly what you want all the time. And this is sort of like a secret path of spiritual growth that many people are on that they don't realize they're on, right? it forces them out of their normal ways of thinking. It forces them out of their self-centered ways of thinking. Now, you can do this on your own, but you have to work at it, right? This is what we call spiritual practice. And one of the key things here is this, with a child, or even frankly with cats or dogs, things don't happen on your schedule. You have to let go of the way you want it to happen. Likewise, in spiritual practice, you have to let go of your experiences. You have to let go of the things you've experienced and go forward. Because otherwise, those will become footholds for the sense of I, the sense of me. I mentioned samadhi a moment ago. Samadhi arises when you're meditating, but when you're 100% present where you are. You're 100% aware that your thoughts are silly thoughts, or your thoughts are calm, or your thoughts are full of thoughts of desire, or your thoughts are full of what's on TV tonight, right? You're 100% aware of that, and letting go of that as you're aware of them. Not fighting it, not clinging to it, not trying to push it away, but you're 100% aware of that. So you're fully present. And then samadhi arises. But I have a wonderful experience. So, I want that experience back. Now, pretty soon I'm not thinking about that experience, I'm thinking of my memory of that experience, right? And so I'm not present anymore. I'm trying to chase this thing over here. Come back to me, make it come back. And then it never happens again. So in meditation, it's almost like there's a thing of beginner's luck. Beginners who start playing games or card games, sometimes they do really well because they aren't caring. They don't care. They aren't stressed about it. But then they start doing good and they start thinking about the money, playing cards, and then they start doing terrible again. But when their mind's free of this clinging, and their mind's free of this desire for this outcome or that outcome, they do really good. It's kind of one of these funny things about life. A lot of times, the soldiers who aren't worried about dying are the ones who live. The soldiers who are always worried about dying are the ones who get killed first. And so there's enough exceptions to that, but it's kind of odd how that works out. So one of the things that this relates to is this idea of greed in spiritual practice. I mentioned some of the people in the 60s who started practicing meditation and started practicing in India or practicing in Tibet or some places. And a few of them were really caught up into just collecting spiritual experiences. And throughout their whole time, everything they described, they're like, and I had this one, and I had that one. Somebody I know was at a meditation hall in Myanmar, and he heard two guys arguing, well, I got the 7th jhana, the 7th level of samadhi. Well, I got the 9th, the master said, I got the 9th level of, samadhi. It's like, if you really, 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 really got the point of that experience, you wouldn't have been saying that, right? But they still were in this idea of my experiences, I obtained. And they hadn't got to the point where they realized they needed to consistently work at letting go of that. And again, this goes back to what I just mentioned about this idea of greed in spiritual practice. Greed for enlightenment, right? I'm a Sanim, obviously, and so okay, get up and say something, right? say something good. Everybody here will get bored. I absolutely guarantee you. Like, okay, babble, 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 babble. What time's dinner? Right, well, maybe I'll go get a cup of coffee. No, it's air conditioned in here, so I'll just stay here. But this is, the funny thing is, if I sit down, and with all due respect to our director, people ask me for outlines of your talk. Okay, so I send them something, and then when I come in to give a talk, I just talk about whatever I want to talk about. Because when we are fundamentally connected, every single one of us in here, right? When we sit down together, the energy of our connection, of our existence arises. And sometimes I just feel motivated to talk about different things. Some days I want to talk about this, and some days I want to talk about that. And I may have had an idea when I came in here, but once I sat down, once we saw each other, met each other, I just totally forgot about what that idea was. If I came in here with you can feel this when people give speeches, right? They come up and they start reading their speech. And it's just, you can almost feel the painfulness of people just not wanting to be there. Hurry up. The guy pauses for a moment and everybody starts clapping like, okay, he's done now, we can go sit down. And because there's no connection with the people. There's no reaching out or trying to connect with the people. And so it's just deadly boring. But when much faster, you have to continuously work at letting go of, I've attained. This is my experience. And then from this non-dual state, then it can really begin to flower. But that letting go of the things that you stick out like I, me, and mine is really watering this inner brightness. It's giving water to this flower. And you keep giving it water, you keep giving it water, and one day it will bloom. It absolutely will bloom. Okay. People have questions? I like questions. Any questions? Yes?
Why is it here? Why is it here? Because I feel it here. I feel it. It's like I'm afraid of what I will find.
Uh-huh.
And at the same time, I'm also afraid of changing in a way that I will be disconnected with the people I love.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. Why the fear? I'm not really sure why the fear. Some people would say that it's the ego's death throes, and I'm not sure that's really quite right. I think it's probably more to do with doing things in a way that you've never done them before. It's always been like this, so doing things in a different way is scary. But partly, as you get more experiences of your own foundation, right, of the light inside of you, the fear will disappear. One of the biggest things, it's kind of a funny question when people first hear about letting go. I say, well, no, if I let go, won't I become just like kind of a zombie or something? And the answer is no. It actually frees you. It frees you to be more present with the people around you. You feel much more care and compassion for the people around you.
And also anything that is exciting, anything
feeling, it's frightening?
Yeah, it's like embarrassment.
Uh-huh. Well, I used to skydive, so I'm not sure I'm the best person to talk to about vertigo. But it's actually liberating. In the end, it's actually like, it's a relief. It's a big relief. Because the people in your life, the people you care about, you actually understand them better. And to the extent where you have a really clear idea of this is the way things have always been, then things change. I am his son, I am his daughter. Maybe kind of the fixed ways of looking at that changes. And that can be kind of a frightening experience, I guess. But you can never fall outside the love that your own inherent nature, your own inner divinity has for you. And even if things seem really terrible, even if you just don't know how things are going to go forward, just keep entrusting that there. This isn't the first life you've lived, and this body isn't the sum of your whole existence. So as a being, you're much more than just this one part. It's much vaster than that. And like all big change, at the time it's scary, but later you look back on it and realize it was a good direction for you to go. Yeah. No, that's everything. All change often has fear. There's the koan or the wadu that talks about taking a step off a 100-foot bamboo pole. You're stepping off into the empty space. You're stepping off into the air. And so part of spiritual practice is kind of getting used to that feeling where the sense of ground is gone. Yeah. And, but with experience you realize, okay, time after time I've done this and I've been okay. So this time too I'll probably be okay. And I think that's, this really is the process of getting to know your true nature, of getting to know this inner light, and realizing that, okay, people said it was there, and so I experimented and I practiced, and things turned out okay. Or even if they didn't turn out okay, I still, I learned a lot. You learn what was going on, why things didn't work out the way you expected. For me, okay. Good. You're welcome. Other questions? Yes?
Going back to your example of two or more people working together and things becoming more harmonious by you letting go of your own desires and wanting things to become more harmonious. I noticed that the conflict that I have a lot is I have a strong desire to be understood
Yeah. I would say there's a couple of things going on there. One thing that I often see is people are trying to explain themselves with words, right? If I can just find the right words, then they'll understand me. But the fact is, oftentimes, there's nothing you can say. There's never the right words to make it click with them, right? What really happens, it's an interesting experience. With the example, I can't say that, he understood me, she understood me. But when I entrust that, okay, we need to be more harmonious. Let's be more harmonious. When I trust that, it's kind of like you have A, the step of entrusting, you have a black box, and then you have C, things becoming more harmonious. What happened in the middle there, I'm not exactly sure. I'm pretty sure it's related to, I know it's related to the fact that we're all fundamentally connected, right? If I entrust it with the idea of trying to manipulate somebody, then instead of more harmony, what I'm going to get is resentment, because the people will feel like he's trying to control me. He's trying to force me into something I don't want to do. And even though you're only thinking that, even though you're only trusting that thought, they'll feel that pressure. They'll feel themselves being pushed somewhere they don't want to go. And so it'll actually create resentment. If you've had fights with your parents, or fights with your girlfriends, or fights with your husbands, you get to a point sometimes where no matter what you say will only increase the volume, right? But that's not what I meant. What I meant was, and then there'll just be more shouting, right? But no, that's not, it's this idea, if I can just find the right word, the key, they'll just, and everything will be cool. But it doesn't work, or especially when it's not working like that. One of the things is we don't exist on just the mouth, between the mouth and the ears alone. In Buddhism, we call this mind, or you can say foundation, or this divine connection, if you will. This connection also exists between us. And so when we actually truly communicate with somebody, we're communicating with all parts of ourselves. But a lot of times when we're in a verbal argument, we're just trying to do the mouth. We're just trying to, if I can beat him down with the right argument, if I can, persuade him. But what we really need to do is try to make this connection here. And to be understood, a lot of times, translating is like this. I have to understand what they're trying to say first. Okay, you think this text should say this, and what they're saying may make no sense to me at all. But they have an opinion about this, and so I have to figure, why do they think this means this? And so I have to really let go of what I think I understand and really put myself in their shoes and try to understand where they're coming from. And once I've done, in the process of doing that, they also begin to understand where I'm coming from, just in the get back and forth. And so some in Korean we have a great word called nunchi. Do you know this word? Nunchi opta. Some people have no quick perception. Their girlfriend or the wife or the husband is like, no, don't say. And they just don't pick up a clue of what's going on. And some people are like very quick to to perceive what's, oh no, he's a little bit uncomfortable, I better, back. And so some people's perception like this is just different. And so some people, you cannot make them understand you, right? You just, you can beat them like a horse and they won't get what you're saying. It gets more so the case when you're talking from really deep experiences, right? Because they may just not have had the same experience at all. So they don't know how to relate to that. There's also the Korean expression I like a lot called Dongmun Sodap. East question, West answer. So in translating, I made the expression Dongmun Sodap Jiok, the hell of questions and answers coming from going astray. If you talk about, yes, my experience as an Asian American, and he's talking about his experiences as a white guy in Germany, no, that's not the same. Just not, and you can't force that to happen. Right? You can't force people to understand you. You can, you can entrust. When we're translating, and I said, oh, we should be, we need to be more harmonious. And then also, if I also ask, what's a good translation of this? I ask that and just let that percolate down inside. Sometimes an idea will pop up. And it may have been like a big argument, or we spent half a day on one paragraph. And some idea will pop up. Oh, what about this? Write this as this sentence. Then all of a sudden just everybody, oh yeah, okay, yeah, oh great, yeah, that's fine. It's like, that's it? We're done with this, we can move on? And sometimes it just happens like that. And you can't grab onto there's nothing you can say, that was this. You get the input and you see the output. It's like old-time science, right? Before they understood oxygen. Well, gee, if I burn a match in this thing with the bat dies. Well, it's not dying from the heat, and it's not, and so they have no idea what killed the bat. Right? But they know if they did this, something happens in the middle and you get this output. Well, spiritual practice is a lot like this, where days when, long before I became a monk, there'd be days when I'm like, okay, I really want to practice good today. I'm going to be really diligent. Today is December 8th. This is the day of the Buddha's enlightenment, the anniversary of the Buddha's enlightenment. So I should practice really hard today, right? Lots of meditation, maybe some bows. My friend Seon calls me says, hey, it's snowing in the mountains. They've got 2 feet of fresh powder snow. Let's skip school and go skiing. Yeah, okay, great. Stop by a friend and pick up some, oh, you want to get some schnapps? Oh, sure, okay. Worst, we get back, completely forgot about being diligent about practice, right? I'll come back, go to another party, wake up in the morning with the worst hangover probably that I've ever had. And time after time after time, the days when I'm going to be really diligent, I'm going to be especially good today, were always the days I was the worst. And so it was like, okay, what's going on here? This is kind of frustrating, actually. Well, eventually I figured out it was that I'm going to be, right? I'm going to be doing this, like this. And so you don't know what happened in the middle. But if you pay attention, this is why paying attention is the first step of all spiritual practice. You notice what happened in the beginning, and you notice what happened at the outcome. And you often don't know exactly what happened in the middle. But if you keep watching what happened in the beginning, and you keep watching what happened at the outcome, at the end, You begin to realize, okay, this was what happened in the beginning. This produces this kind of an outcome. Okay, so I gotta, they say let go of reasons, right? Let go of the reasons for this, change this beginning, and the outcome will change. He's a no good, rotten SOB, and he doesn't deserve me being nice to him, right? But the result is I feel better. Okay. Even if he doesn't seem to understand me, the situation gets better. The situation seems to improve. And then there's also the question, why is it so important for me to be understood? What am I hoping to get? And sometimes ask this question and let this soak down inside of you. Kind of a long answer, but.
Fear.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I'm alone in the mountain.
Uh-huh.
Night, deep night. I start to feel fear very much.
Uh-huh.
Why do I feel fear? If I don't feel fear.
Why do you think you feel fear? You're the one who would know. Well, the way to find the answer to your question is to ask that question inside. Right? Why do I feel fear? What's going on with me that I feel like this? And keep asking, this is your wadu, right? Keep asking that question. And as you go on, in little bits and pieces, you'll get parts of the answer. This is why. But that may not be the whole answer, right? So you need to let go of that, not just cling to that one part, and keep letting go of that. Ultimately, if you really, really, again, now, deep faith comes from a lot of spiritual experiences, right? I know I can trust my foundation, right? This inner light, I know I can trust it. When you have that really kind of deep faith, then you don't really have a problem with fear. It's like, okay, my true self will take care of me. So that'll solve the question of fear. But there's a lot of other stuff that are connected to fear. Fear, and you'll discover those if you keep asking that question inside. Why am I scared? There's things you can do about that, but that's part of your own practice. Right? What's going on with me? What are the subtle perspectives that I have? We talk about, in Buddhism they talk about the three poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. Ignorance, okay, well, that's fine, that's whatever, but ignorance is actually ignorance of the non-dual state that fundamentally exists between all being, between everything. And there's so many permutations of this, so many nuances to this, so many ways this manifests in our life. I am incomplete, and if somebody gives me something else, then I'll be complete. If I can just meet the right person, then I'll be complete. Or, he did this to me, and it's his fault that I'm like this. All of this stuff is coming from this idea that I'm separate from everybody else. That I'm actually not knowing this inner completeness. Money, right? A lot of times, money, the idea about money, once you get beyond the subsistence level, it becomes my refuge. We say, I take refuge in the Buddha. Well, for most people, actually, my refuge is money. Right? Money will keep me safe. Money will keep me happy. But go visit any big hospital. We're not far from the Songmo Byungwon, the St. Mary's Hospital down here by the Gangnam bus terminal. That's a really rich hospital. I mean, you go up to the 12th floor, the high floors, there are some huge suites up there. I mean, the people who pay for those suites are paying a lot of money. I swear I saw a movie star up there once when I was visiting somebody. This guy and this woman, they had to be television stars. I mean, that's level. And they're at this major hospital, and you only go there if you have major problems, right? So, very good looking couple, very rich apparently. And they're in the hospital because there's something that money won't fix, right? You're up there in the 12th floor, the 20th floor, whatever it is, and if you've got cancer, you've got some strange infection or some problem, money won't fix it, right? We think, I get off track, but the youngest daughter of the founder of Samsung, probably had the mother of all trust funds, killed herself. She was pretty and young and very wealthy, and that wasn't, people who don't have obscene amounts of money think the money will keep me safe. The money will ensure my safety or my happiness or my joy. But the people who have lots of money know that's not the case. It means I get to buy some nice toys and I can buy some nice clothes, but the same stress, the same problems, the same heartache, the same fears, I still have, and money won't do anything about them. This is why sometimes newly famous, newly rich people actually have a high rate of suicide. Because they spent their whole life assuming that if I got famous, if I got rich, then everything would be good. And they get there and it's like, oh, what do I do now? All the stuff that I thought would make me happy isn't making me happy. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the need for control and security is something like a basic instinct.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we have to let go to get rid of attachment, it's like we have to go against this instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really difficult.
Yep.
This is frightening also.
That's why they call it spiritual practice. No, really, because it's these habits that we've developed for so many, eons, right? In maybe billions of years, trying to, it's kind of, if I can just control some aspect of the material realm, then I'll be okay. If I can just make that happen, then everything will be fine. But because these habits are so ingrained, we spend, that's really, when I become aware of it, okay, now I need to let go of it. And you don't need to go, this is the thing, you don't need to go out hunting for these issues. Just be aware in your daily life. And when you realize, oh wow, I got caught up in that. Oh wow, this one, boy, that one, I went for a walk in the woods and where did that come from, right? Okay, now it's work and I got to struggle and a little bit, but now I need to let go of that. Okay, it seemed, all right, you go for a while and, something that you thought you were past, something you thought this is not a problem for me anymore, hasn't been a problem for 5 years, one day it may just completely slam you. And it's just like, whoa, that was unexpected. And you know, that's, in the old days, that's why they described karma as seeds, right? You plant a seed and you don't know when it's going to sprout. And it's, you know, you can say it bubble, right? You don't know when it's going to bubble up. You just pay attention. Everything starts with paying attention. Once you realize you're caught up in that, then okay, let go of it. Even what we call, there's a phrase that always drives everybody nuts in the English translations called mushim, or in the basic English translation is no mind. And so it's like, oh, I shouldn't think. Oh, that's a thought. Ah! You know, this drives people up a wall sometimes. But that's not exactly what it means. It can describe a state like samadhi, where all of your thoughts settle down. But what it really describes is the activity of being aware, and when you notice I, or me, or you know, he's doing this, or she did this to me, when you start noticing this kind of stuff, then you let go of that I, you let go of that me. And that's when they say no mind or mindless mind, ultimately that's what it's really referring to. If you just let go of this me and this I, then nothing anybody does can really bother you. Right? It just, there's nowhere for it to cling to. It just passes by. I've told this story before, but I used to help my uncle is a plumber. If you have an old sewer line where a tree root got inside, all the soap, all the scum clings to the tree root and starts building up around it. Right? It's exactly like this thought of I, or me versus others. You know, he did this to me. All these thoughts are exactly like that. Once those get raised up, all this gunk starts clinging onto them. But if you just let go of them, then it just passes by without touching you. You know, if you're at a very calm, very centered state, you know, where you're basically flowing with the moment, letting go, whether you realize it, whether you call it that or not, and somebody says something really obnoxious to you, it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, okay, right? But if you're a little bit tense or a little bit worried about something or hanging on to something, and somebody says something like that, then it's kind of like, okay, yeah.
Your experience of wanting to practice diligently on those days and failing to do so is also relevant to my history. How did you end up practicing diligently?
Letting go of I. Really. Well, this is a slightly embarrassing example, but I was thinking, really the basic thing of any kind of diligent practice is paying attention and letting go of I, me, I want, when you become aware of it. Just calmly entrusting that. You know, that's it. You don't have to be anywhere special. If you have some quiet time where you can kind of pay attention to what's going on in your head, that's actually helpful. You know, this is actually where sitting meditation is helpful, because if you're sitting down, you're not getting up to change the laundry or to watch television or to answer the phone or something. You know, I'm just going to sit here for 20 minutes or 30 minutes and pay attention to what's going on. And you know, just keep letting go of that stuff. Anytime I come up with the idea, I'm going to do this, I wind up sabotaging myself, because I'm only feeding that basic idea of I, of me, as separate from myself. So it actually makes your desire stronger, because you're feeding that sense of dualism of myself versus others. And so it's like trying to lose weight by eating more. Okay, I ran a lot today, so I'm going to eat even more. And I was like, well, I'm not sure that's working, you know. Okay, the more I run, the more I eat, and the more I eat. And it's like, oh, yeah. Just calmly, wherever you are, paying attention, and when you realize you're caught up in this I, me, mine thing, entrust it. It's like, okay, I have this inner light that's guiding me. In Korean we use the word Juingong, the one that's doing everything, but which is empty, which has no fixed shape. And it's like, okay, I'll trust that. That's taking care of me. Okay, true self, you're the one that can show me the way. And go forward and do your best in the situation. And when you realize you fell off the horse, you just get back on. Beating yourself up is this kind of this weird thing. Partly, I think we do it to make ourselves look sufficiently regretful to other people. Oh, I'm so terrible, I was so rotten. But it does absolutely no good. If you have a conscience, right, and you actually feel bad about it, it does no good. It's like self-flagellation for no particular purpose. If you realize you made a mistake, okay, apologize, correct it as best you can, and figure out what you did, where you went wrong. Where did the mistake arise from? What do I have to do to not do that again? And go forward. One of the things we can do, because we are connected to everybody, the thoughts we give rise to have energy. So if we raise a good intention for somebody, that really does spread out. That really does have a power. To the extent that we have this muscle developed of letting go, of entrusting, and can really make contact with this inner light, the thoughts we give rise to and entrust back again here have an effect on the people around us. I mentioned before where you may be having an argument and thinking, you need to do this. No, stop doing that and agree to my point, right? Or do it my way. And the other person will start feeling resentment towards you. Will start, I never said a word to her, and yet she hates my guts. Well, that's stupid, right? Just those thoughts have energy. Other people pick up on that. Even though they're not sure why, they pick up on that. The flip side of that we as spiritual practitioners can use for everyone's benefit is to raise positive thoughts for somebody. Okay, we completely don't get along, but I hope she's well, I hope she's happy. Sometimes with people you realize suddenly they're moving from pain, right? All the stuff they're doing is from deep inner pain. If that deep inner pain is taken away, then their bad behavior can really change too. So, okay, I hope he's better, I hope he's happy, I hope he's found peace within, I hope he finds peace within himself and learns to dissolve that pain. I hope they're successful, I hope they find their way in life, I hope they have a good experience. And that, entrusting these kinds of positive thoughts like this have a positive effect on other people. And because we are connected, if somebody else is better off, then I'm better off. We're all breathing the same air. If her air and his air and his air is better, then my air becomes better. It's kind of one of these amazing things, but it costs nothing, right? And yet, people have said this before, but in freeing other people, in forgiving other people, in wishing other people well, you also free your own heart. You really do. You really do. It doesn't matter whether they deserve it or not. Any kind of punishment, any kind of, what's the word? I guess, yeah, punishment's a good enough word. For whatever misdoings somebody may have done is inherently embedded in the seed of what they did wrong, right? The moment that, if I hurt somebody else, there's a fundamental dualism in that I can hurt her and get away with it, right? Because she's separate from me. In hurting her, I increase the dualism in my own life. I, in a deep sense, increase the distance from this, my own inner light. And the further away I get from that, the more dried out, the more, kind of sand in your eye sort of feeling my own life becomes. And so, there's, in that sense, nobody escapes from the effects of what they've done. But if before those things completely sprout, we entrust them, we record them, we can apologize and say, oh, that was my fault, I'm sorry. And sometimes you can't apologize in person, right? The person may be dead. It may be a situation where it'd be really weird if you came up and apologized to them for something. But even through here, you can say, I'm sorry. I wish I hadn't done that. I hope you're well. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're successful. I hope your family's happy. May you all grow. May you all know wisdom. May you all have the courage and energy to implement your wisdom, to put your wisdom into action. This goes a ways towards repaying the kinds of debts we have towards other people, and towards really giving other people a blessing. Okay. Well, other questions? Yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Try it. Uh-huh. Well, dogs and children have their own karma. And it depends upon if they're able to hear you, right? If you've been practicing on your own, right? We're talking about spiritual practice today. You've been practicing on your own. You've been trying things. You've been experimenting with things. And maybe you have some aspect that just isn't quite going very smoothly. Something you keep getting caught on. Just clunk, clunk, clunk. And you've been trying that. And so I say something about that. Or I say something and you're like, oh, that's what I was doing wrong. Right? Right then you understand me and boom. You put that into work and you change. And so the communication goes very smoothly. But if you haven't been thinking about anything else, right, your viewpoint is completely different than why I should stop barking. Doesn't make sense. I'm bored, or I just got in the habit of doing this, or I heard this other dog once somewhere and it barked, so if I just keep barking long enough, it'll bark back. And so, oh, stop barking, Mom's annoyed. It doesn't really connect with the way. So, ask me later, I'll tell you about some other stuff that works for stopping dogs barking. But so, and we can't make people do anything, right? Every single individual is every single individual is a royal being, right? They have their own way of doing things. They have their own, they are the royal upright being who does what seems best for them. We, forcing people into doing something they don't want to do is really produces unpleasant side effects. And kids, people, every kind of child behavioral book doesn't talk about forcing kids to do something. It's like taking the behaviors they have and trying to shape them a little bit, right? Encourage the good behaviors and ignore the bad behaviors. So you kind of move them into a more healthy direction. But you can't force people to do anything. Really can't. All right. Thank you very much.